we have a special guest today. We have Obi Jacobi. That is the second generation president of Windermere Real Estate, which, as you guys know, is 6,500 agents in 10 states with over 300 offices. We're even in, I just confirmed, we're even in Cabo San Lucas and Hawaii. And like Obi just agreed, we should just open up wherever it's tropical. The older we get, the more we want to be able to have a great excuse to go to these beautiful places, right, Obi? So we just have the opportunity to learn a little bit about, like, behind the scenes, what it's like to grow up in a real estate family. Windermere Real Estate was actually founded 2 years after Obi was born. Obi was born when I was born, so just under 50 years ago. Windermere Real Estate came on the scene, started up in Seattle, and is, as you know, expanded across 10 states. And Obi, thanks so much for joining us today. As you put it, you love coming to these office meetings, so we're going to make sure you come to a lot of them with us. And just really appreciate you joining us today before your hike. You're going to go on a hike, and I'm jealous of that, but it's a perfect day for a hike. I'm up here in Seattle as well today, and that overcast will probably serve you well today.
I hope.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Well, and Obi, you're I'm assuming you're right down there in Seattle at your office today.
Yep.
And
one of three.
One of three, yeah. And then Obi, you oversee the, I think, 7 company-owned stores.
You know, we've been growing from an acquisition standpoint from a company stores, and I think we have about 35 now.
Oh, okay. So got to update that bio. Exactly.
I do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you know, Obi, I was sitting down today and I was thinking, what do I want to know about you? And I'm sure, I was thinking for the whole team, our 500 Windermere Homes and Estates agents, as well as Rich, our president, just kind of like, what should we know about you? And before we get into the nuts and bolts of Windermere Real Estate, it's kind of state of the company, technology and tools, and your predictions for the future. I wanted to just take us back. Like, I want to go back to the name OB. Like, how is that short for something? And then you spell, like, everyone up here has been spelling it OBI. I'm like, guys, do not do that. It's capital O, capital B. Take us back, man. Tell us about this name.
I will. It's funny. So my dad's name is John Jacobi. And when I was born, my mom wanted a junior. And my dad did not want a junior at all. And so I went actually unnamed for about a week. And my mother's maiden name is O'Brien. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, used to be called Obi, for short for O'Brien. So they named me John O'Brien Jacobi is my real name. But since birth, I've gone by Obi. So when I was in college, I thought, I'm going to get rid of this ridiculous name and start to go by John. That's more appropriate. And people would call, back then there weren't cell phones. So I'd go in the dorm and somebody say, "You have a phone call, John." And I would be like, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm going back to Obi. It's been that way ever since. So I know, like, if it's John, it's a bill collector, and don't answer.
Well, I'm telling you right now, the Obi Jacobi, the alliteration of that, like, it just kind of works. Like, I'm sure everyone called you Obi Jacobi, like, in high school. It was like it's almost an icon. It's actually not a name. It's just like a thing, right? Like, yeah, it's one word.
My real estate brand with my logo would just be Obi Jacobi.
So, real estate family. So you come on the scene 2 years after, you're just 2 years old. You're probably already putting signs in the ground. Tell us what it's like. Take us back to, growing up in this real estate family. Your dad had a dream, started putting this thing together in Sandpoint. And so tell us what it's like. I mean, you lived, eat, breathe, like, came out of the womb Windermere Real Estate. Like, know how to spell Windermere, right? Like, better than all of us. So talk to us.
So it's pretty funny. My dad, I'm sure everybody's read the story or heard it, but my dad was a banker. He was doing 2 jobs at once, as moonlighting as an appraiser, and really got sick of the bureaucracy of the bank and all that kind of stuff, and thought, I'd like to go out and buy a business. My grandfather, his dad, was in advertising. And so they went out and looked for businesses to buy, and he honestly didn't care what he was going to buy. He knew a little bit about real estate because of his appraisal background. And at one point, I think he was going to buy a golf course, and he wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was it. And so he found an office in Sandpoint with 7 agents and bought it. And at that time I was 2. And so for the first, 10 years of that, him owning the business, he was trying to figure out what brokerage is and what he wanted to be and what was important to him. And he had a couple of agents, a woman named Babette Cosby, who would come into the office and she would be dressed to the nines, and real estate was very Glengarry Glen Ross back then, as metal desks and AstroTurf inside. And my dad really wanted to raise the profession to, something that was very respectable. And so he went to Babette and went to the office, said, hey, we're going to set some standards right now on dress and how we're going to act and professionalism and all the rest. And that's really how we grew the office. So my upbringing was very much, let's get out there. It was a startup, Jill and I've got 5 sisters. I'm the only boy and my other sisters aren't in the business. And we did a lot of sweeping the sidewalks. Jill worked in accounting and front desk when she was a teenager, and they would never let me in accounting, for goodness sakes. I am away from that department. So, when I was 19, I worked in college. I worked at property management for one of our owners, Jim Laws, and it was a great education on renting and leasing and what that looks like. It's a terrible way to start, actually, to tell you the truth, but it was a good education. And then after college, I went to Europe like some people do, and I came back and I went to get my job back. And there was a comedy club, 10,000 square foot comedy club that had gone out of business and left everything that you needed to open a restaurant and a bar. So, I went, instead of going to get my job back, I went and said, hey, what's it going to take to lease this space? And so at 21, I opened a really big nightclub and bar and said, I'm never going back to real estate. And lost my license, which was a stupid move because, of course, they upped the hours you needed to do to get your license. So I had that for 5 years, and I sold it. And then my wife and I opened a cafe. So I went from going to bed real early in the morning to waking up real early in the morning and baking and doing coffee and all that stuff. And Jill came to me after about 6 months and said, hey, moron, join the family business and come on back and do this. And so I did. My dad is the kind of guy who believes in crawl, walk, run. He's very old school, of that generation that has that belief, is start at the bottom and work your way up. So both Jill and I have done, almost every job in real estate. Like I said, I haven't done accounting. She did. I managed an office for about 5 years, was the general manager for our 6 offices, and then have moved more into the franchisor role, and then managing the offices that we have. So we've kind of really grown up. At family vacations, it was always real estate chatter, all the time. So it's just kind of one of those things you talk about always.
Well, that's the news for me is that Windermere Real Estate was started with 7 agents, right? I mean, like this little 7-agent acquisition, and cut your teeth. Your dad cut his teeth there. And I knew you kind of were trying to figure out a way not to be in real estate initially. And I love it. It's like, no, you get on back here. No more on this nightclub stuff and baking and this and that. Like, but it makes sense. So you're like, no, I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to be my own entrepreneur, right? So you and then one thing leads to another, and here you are, right? President of Windermere Real Estate at age 51. That is a crack up. Well, so hey, I wrote down this question, like, what's your youngest memory of Windermere? I mean, my dad worked for the Los Angeles Times, and I have this youngest memory of, I thought he ran the Los Angeles Times, right? And then, but my youngest memory was like how cool that supply closet was. There was black pens and red pens and blue pens. Every time I went to his office, I would want to grab a handful of pens and maybe a hole punch, right? Because how cool that was. For you, what is your youngest memory of Windermere Real Estate?
Well, I don't know if this is my youngest, but it's going to be the one that sticks with me the most. And it was, we had one of those, those old station wagons that had the back that flipped down, and they had the seat where you faced out backwards.
Suicide. Suicide.
No seat belts, no nothing, the car doors down. We're driving through town, and my dad pulls over and he's like, Obi, get out of the car and go get that A board. I'm like, what? So I go out and I get the A board, I put it in the car and we go home. I'm like, what are we doing? We're going to call that agent. This A board looks like, you know what?
Yeah.
That agent's got to get new A boards. Like, okay. So,
Yeah. So I'm assuming your dad's very mild and meek.
Oh,
right?
yeah. There was a lot of swear words involved in that conversation.
And then seven sisters? How many sisters?
I've got 5 sisters.
Five sisters. Jill and you are the last one standing when it comes to Windermere Real Estate.
Yep.
So 5 sisters and little Obi. Are you the youngest?
I'm in dead middle.
Dead middle. Okay. Well, because if you were like 5 sisters and the youngest, that's a different show, right?
I wouldn't. Jill's the oldest, by the way. I don't know if that plays through. She's older than me, everybody. I know.
Yeah.
Not fair.
Yeah, exactly. And then I wrote down, like, what's it like? I mean, you work in a family business and like half of that's like massively frustrating. And then half of that's like amazing. So how did you guys navigate that?
In all reality, it's funny because we're working with somebody on third generation planning. And I think for us, I'm like one of the luckiest people in the world. My dad worked really hard at creating family synergy amongst all of us. We all really like each other. We go on vacations together. Like, we live close to by each other. We really like each other. And the interesting part of a family business, which I think is important, is we're planning for our kids and hopefully their kids to be in this business. And, that's something that is really important. We're trying to create something that's bigger than the $1 profit. It's kind of like you all that are not just in it for one transaction, we're in it for our lifetime. Yeah. And my oldest is 21, my youngest is 19. They're still a ways away from thinking about it, hopefully, at least I hope.
Mm-hmm. No, they're about ready to buy a nightclub.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he doesn't say that. My dad had a lot of patience. I don't have that. So anyway, it certainly has its ups and downs, especially with a patriarch of my dad's demeanor. He's an incredibly gracious and gregarious person, but it also comes with family baggage that can be difficult. But my working relationship with Jill and Jeff, for instance, is fantastic, and we complement each other in our skill set, which is super fun. So.
Well, when we met about a year and a half ago over at that coffee shop, it seemed like you guys had great synergy. It was you, Jeff, and Jill, and great synergy. And everyone kind of knows their role. And you would defer as necessary to Jill and or Jeff, and vice versa. You weren't left out, right? So you guys finally have kind of figured out that rhythm over time, right? Like you said, but so what is Thanksgiving like? I mean, is it off limits to talk real estate at this point, or does it inevitably come around to that?
It all depends on who we're with. If it's, the Woods and us, my wife will kick me under the table and tell me to knock it off. If it's my other sisters, we try and avoid it.
Oh, exactly. A friend of mine, a Windermere agent friend of mine, was in Hawaii and was walking on the beach and ran into your dad. He spends a lot of time over there these days. So he's kind of mellowed, right? He's taken a massive step back within the company and really handed off the reins. Was that something difficult for him, or was it just a slow process and everyone saw it coming?
It's a great question. My dad, it was pretty interesting. He sold the company to the kids and he did a 10-year contract that we probably could have paid off before that, but he really wanted the mentor program in place with himself in there. He's now 81, and that happened about 10 years ago. It was completed. And at that time he started developing property, and he's got this massive development that he's doing. So I don't think he's going any slower. I actually think he's sped up in his work life, which I kind of always question him, but he doesn't talk too much about the business anymore.
Well, that's great. And you can't take the entrepreneur out of an entrepreneur for sure. Even at 81, that makes sense. I mean, it would actually be probably scary if he really truly fully retired at this point. It is interesting when you talked about like upping the standards and the professionalism. When I joined Windermere back in the 90s, that was the one differentiating thing, was I always call it kind of the Nordstroms of real estate vibe, right? That Windermere has. And that has obviously trickled all the way down to, as far as, Del Mar. in San Diego. We've got a group of agents with those higher standards in terms of everything from, you know, their obviously how they dress, but how they represent this wonderful brand, and that's the one kind of standard across every state that I've ever visited when it comes to Windermere, is that there's this sort of true deep pride for what Windermere stands for.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. I think
Yeah.
everybody works really hard at it, and it's I think people notice.
You know, the next question I wrote down was that when you think of a real estate agent within Windermere, there's probably one person that comes to mind, like just like the epitome of a Windermere real estate agent. Who would that be?
You know what? It's funny. You didn't pre-ask that, and I don't have a great answer for you because there's so many different aspects of people that I appreciate the way they do their business. You know, I just bought a condo, and the guy that I've used, he's been with us for a long time. He is one of our general managers. His name's Edward Krigsman, and he is an unbelievable agent. He's unbelievable in all of his caring and the way he helps his clientele, both from a listing standpoint and a sales standpoint. But he's great on an analytical side and on a, you know, nuts and bolts and all that. I know amazing premier agents who have a whole different vibe about them, who care for their clients in a different way. So, you know, I don't know that I have a great one answer for you, because I think the way that people, as long as they're caring for their clients in the way that I think Windermere people do, then that's what I love.
Yeah.
You know, I love that we don't think about it as one transaction, that we, you know, I want all of us to say, you're better off remodeling your house than you're buying right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a word that I want to hear, those words I want to hear people say, right? That means we're doing our clients good.
Yeah. Helping them make the right decisions. I think of, actually, you know him, I think of Rick Franz.
Oh yeah.
Just right, you know, I mean, Rick is just like the epitome of a real estate agent up in Bellevue. He was in ProStart. He came and talked about his business. He had kind of a cool brand. And I sat through ProStart with a few kind of cameo visits with Rick, and I'd watch all the stuff he was selling and everything he listed, it was sold immediately, and he carried himself so well as a Windermere real estate agent. So many other agents as well, obviously, but that's like the example that I always think of when I think of it. And I still receive Rick Franz's emails, right, about his properties going up in, you know, Klahani or whatever. So.
Yeah, he sits on the premier board, he teaches, and he's just a very giving, go-giver kind of guy.
No doubt. Well, you know what? You know, way back when, I mean, you started doing a lot of kind of technological advancements and being the head of that and steering that, whether it be the app or Moxie, being a part of all that. Could you share a little bit of the things that you're proud of that Windermere's been able to kind of just break into, maybe even before anyone else broke into? Because I know that was the case. And with Windermere, you know, smaller organization, meaning not, you know, national. So it was actually more nimble to do that and try things out. And what are the things that you're proud of?
It's an interesting question, and I'm going to give you a weird answer. So, you know, technology is a really tough thing. Number one, for all of us as agents, you know, we are busy people, and we're busy selling real estate and having relationships, and that takes a ton of work. So learning new technologies and things like that is hard. So I don't, you know, I'm not going to go down a list of products or something like that. The thing that I am proud of that I think is important is that we, you know, we spun it out and started the company with the idea that, you know, we need partners. Technology is not a one company figures this all out and you pour $1 gazillion down the funnel and that's going to solve our real estate issues, whatever those are. So, you know, we partnered with Long and Foster and Howard Hanna, who I really respect, and started to grow the company with those partners. And now I think we have, you know, 400,000 agents on our platform. And that might sound like, well, now we have competition using our stuff. We don't, we do, of course we do, but it's not about who gets access. It's about how good you use it. And how, you know, how in tune are you? And I would never suggest to somebody go use everything, because that's unrealistic. Go use a couple of things really, really good. And I think our tools, you know, by just the sheer number of people that are on our platform,
Yeah.
are best in class. So, I like the fact that it gets better because we have more people on the platform. I like the fact that we leverage our relationships across the country to build better products. And so I think I'd say, I'm proud that we've embraced other people and other products to make our stuff better, because we're not going to win this by ourselves.
Yeah.
Whatever win it means.
Right. And exactly. And Moxie was originally a Windermere company. And then recently, well, you're still on the board, correct? But what happened with Moxie? You handed it off fully as a separate company. I know York's done an amazing job of kind of leading that.
Yeah, so we brought in Long and Foster and Howard Hanna as partners first, and then about 2 years ago we brought in a private equity partner for about half. So we still have quite a bit of ownership in the company, with the idea that it's a black hole. I mean, we spend currently, I think our current spend is about $26 million a year in technology. And we still lose money on the platform, which is absolutely fine. We're just trying to build as great a product as we can and integrate with as much stuff as we can. And you're going to see there's some really cool stuff coming. And I hate talking about things that are coming because that's, it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah. Here we go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I run into companies now utilizing Moxie, not obviously not near any of our offices, but that aren't with Windermere that are benefiting from Moxie as well. So that's a shift as well, as you're seeing a little bit of Moxie out there, with non-Windermere real estate companies, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And like I said, I think, the key point is it's about how you use it and how you take advantage of it, because tech is everywhere. And that there's no, you're not going to tell me that there's one unbelievable product out there in the world that one person has that's going to solve the world's issues, whatever, those might be. So.
Well, the world's issues are changing, especially within real estate daily.
Yeah.
And the way Moxie's set up, it can change with that because it's not all proprietary. But I'll tell you, $26 million a year is a lot of home sales.
It's a lot. It's
a
lot of, I got to move them out of Seattle.
Yeah.
Pretty expensive here.
Yes, exactly. Well, so, one of the things that I was talking to Rich about today, and I'll have Rich jump in as well, if he has additional questions, but obviously things are changing, and they're not changing like every 5 to 10 now. They're changing like every 6 months, at the most. But when it comes to like that, we're a traditional real estate company, but with a lot of modern aspects. What do you see when it comes to the changing, evolving kind of real estate industry and brokerage that in some respects disrupts everything that we know when it comes to traditional real estate, but then in another way, obviously just enhances the value of our brand and what we deliver on, because of what you've been building for years. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the changing kind of brokerage and disruption, and just to reiterate the relationship benefits of Windermere.
Yeah, it's a great question. There is massive amounts of money being poured into real estate to solve a problem that I'm not quite sure what the problem is. And what the problem is that you all are making money and somebody else wants to take it. That is what I see is why people are pouring this money into it. And so I don't believe in that. Zillow started 16 years ago. It's going to be 17 here pretty quick. And, we all thought, holy shit, here comes Zillow. And then Redfin started right at the same time. And we're like, oh no, here comes a whole new model. And the reality is that, I was thinking about it. We have some UW interns that started up here last week, and we're doing an orientation with them. And I said to them, you guys, think about the process of selling your home. I've lived there for 20 years. I've raised my kids, probably, or maybe. I'm thinking about selling. That is an emotional time for somebody. And then when you talk about everything that happens up until the moment the house sells, what do I do? Do I box it all up? Do I stage it? What do I do? What do I do? And then once you list, the emotions go through the roof. Oh my gosh, am I going to get an offer? And then once you get an offer or you get multiple offers, you got to get to inspection. And then all of a sudden, so the emotional roller coaster that a seller goes through, or a buyer in opposite, obviously, is very, very difficult. And I truly believe that we as professionals in the industry are going to be always needed. I don't think algorithms are going to solve that. And so, there are a million different models out there coming out. Some of them are fantastic. Some of them we're going to adopt, and you're going to see some stuff, but we're not going to pour billions of dollars into iBuying, for instance.
Yeah.
I have not seen that be a thing that works. And I would be real interested to see when the market changes, how swiftly that comes to some kind of grind.
Yeah.
I would suggest that everybody here follow Mike Del Prete, who writes great articles on what he sees in the tech space with money coming in and all the rest, because I think he puts really good numbers to what's going on. So for us as agents, though, I think, with all the innovation, with all the money pouring in, it's like our kids, growing up. Everybody on this call, for the most part, didn't really have a cell phone growing up or an iPad. So your input was the Encyclopedia Britannica, radio, and TV. I mean, that was it. Now, fast forward to my kid, who is 11. I got four of them, but one of them's 11. And think of her inputs. I mean, it's never ending. She asked Google the right answer to the question. So, her inputs and her growth is on a trajectory it's kind of like ours. We're going to have to adopt and look at new technologies. If your business is your 200 people that you're close to, you probably don't. You probably have a damn good business if you're staying close to them and you're really having good relationships with your people. When Zillow and Redfin came into the market, I feel kind of preachy, but when Zillow and Redfin came into the market, we put a stake in the ground, said, we're not going to go after internet leads. That's BS. We're going to have really good relationships with the people we know, like, and trust. And I just think that's a real thing. I don't think that goes away, because this is infrequent and it's highly emotional and it's very complex with disparate businesses that don't talk. And so I believe that, we're going to have to learn some new things. And one of them, for instance, is we're going to offer a platform that has iBuying and modern bridge and different products on it that you're going to have to learn as, hey, here's Mr. or Mrs. Seller, here's a thing that I can offer you, and here's what it costs you, and here's why I can do a better job marketing. Yeah. But that's something we're going to learn. And that's just because of what's going on in the market. That's not to say we're going to offer it as a tool in your toolbox, not something that's going to compete with you. So, we're constantly looking at all this stuff. I mean, it keeps me up at night for sure, because the amount of money pouring into real estate is outrageous, and it's just crazy town.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, it reminds me the iBuyer thing and Zillow, kind of trying to go upstream there and find the people that would be willing to sell for the right number. And that the old example now, it's old now, it's a couple of years old, if Zillow going into Arizona, getting 20,000, different homeowners requesting a valuation, purchase valuation on their house, and Zillow only buying 200 of those homes. Of course, they had 19,800 really pretty warm leads, right, to sell to agents, right? So it's kind of like lead gen on steroids, getting a little more warmer lead. But obviously they only bought 200 homes, but that 200 homes was well worth it, obviously, to get 19,800 other names of people that'd be willing to sell. So we're seeing that here and there, but obviously in a limited way, because I mean, iBuying can't happen. For example, where I jokingly say our starter home is $1 million down in SoCal. It's not always true, but anymore these days, it's not true actually, but it definitely is. The move up buyer is looking at $1 million+ down in Southern California. And if they look too long, it's gone. So, you see a lot less iBuying at that range, and a lot more maybe, Portland, certain areas of Portland, like, you kind of see how Open Door, does it, and where they don't do it, right? But there's actually, what's interesting is there's a competition within the iBuyer space, but it's the same, 5.6 million houses being sold every year, no matter what, same amount of homes being sold, but millions of leads being sold, right?
People trying to get in our pockets.
Yeah. So now I want to transition to the agent. So this is like every agent listening today. I want to ask OB a little bit about like the kind of agent of the future, skills, traits, uh, uh, abilities that you see as being most valuable as we move into the future? Of course, it's always relationship. That hasn't changed. We want to sell a house, just be in relationship, right? But are there some kind of emerging skills and abilities that are different or differentiate an agent today versus, when you first started?
Yeah, there certainly are. I'm going to be, terrible old school and just go with, okay, let's start with the database and make sure everybody has their database up to date. Because really, what I think the near term future, being the next couple of years, is we're going to see more of a one platform situation. Okay, where you're not moving between different things, so easier. So, and then more automation. Those are the two things that I see that are going to be really agent for tech. I mean, we're going to see platforms for iBuying and things like I said. But for me, it still is a relationship business. And for as far as I can see out, it's going to be. And so as long as we're nailing our relationships with our people, it sounds a little old school, and I don't mean to not to dismiss tech a little bit, but I guess sometimes I like to dismiss tech a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about agent, you had talked about all these tools. Don't do all of them, just do some of them great. It reminds me of my kids with the toolbox, or not the toolbox, the toy box. And when there was too many toys in the toy box, then they didn't play with any of them. But if you just took all but 3 out, and they were like, oh, we got 3 new toys, but the toys were in there the whole time. There's that agent adoption thing, right? Like every agent, on this call, listening on Facebook, there is this constant wave of opportunity for technology and tools. And it's how to differentiate what to be a part of and what to not be a part of, what to invest in, what to subscribe to, what not to subscribe to, and that kind of thing. And of course, everyone's looking for that silver bullet. But are there any technology or tools out there that you think are kind of exciting, or even just conceptually technology and tools that are kind of exciting that continue to reinforce relationship?
Oh man, you're killing me. I'm gonna have to swear everybody to secrecy. So one of the things that's been on our plate, and it's not an easy one to solve, but I think it's an important one, is we believe, real estate is the center of what a lot of people do and has a lot of play in the world of almost everything. And so if we can create a portal that wraps with you and your contact and connects you to the client for life, then that's one of the things I'm trying to do. So for instance, you go out and you get an inspection, and one of the things we could do is do a floor plan. And we can ask the inspector, or pay a few extra bucks or something, to also name where all the utilities are and all the serial numbers. And then I have an insurance agent who connects to that. And now I've got a pretty good floor plan, inspection, and utilities. And now I have my insurance plan on there. Well, I can also connect, right now, we can connect utilities and moving services and all sorts of other things. Yeah. We could have your mortgage connected to that. And now we start to build out the platform for the life that connects you to your client in a way that has value, right? So I could see that system having an email that with you co-branded goes out and says, hey, by the way, did you know your mortgage, the current rate is lower for you than what you're currently paying? I'm starting to kind of dream a little bit as I'm talking, but as you can see, let's do an insurance review with you. That comes from our agents to their clients. Things that really add value, that has a one-stop shop for our clients, that connect you to them for life, that makes your life easier. So instead of, anyway, that would be my goal. Is I want you to be the customer. I want you and your customer to be together for life. And how do we add real value to that relationship? And I think we can do it through a platform. And that's one of the things we're trying to figure out how to build, but that would be a technology platform.
Well, it really is moving real estate from just kind of match.com, if you will, between agents and clients into a holistic approach to all the needs of a homeowner in all areas, right? And then the monetization of that.
And I want to be really clear. This is something that if you as an agent want, then great. We as a company will never do that without you. They're your clients. They always will be your clients. And if people find that of value, then that would be fantastic. And we're happy to help. But if not, then that's okay too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now this is another one I'm going to ask you on tech and tools, which is there something that everyone should be doing, should be using? You know, I know I'm not looking for a savior in technology and tools, but there's just got to be something, in your opinion, that's just a standard. It's 101 anymore these days in real estate.
So if it were me and I was in business, right, as an agent, I think the one thing I would try and standardize, I've been talking to Moxie because it's driving me crazy. When you create a CMA and present, it's a dynamic CMA that changes every single day. Okay, once you load the parameters of that house, that will go out and search for comparables within the market every single day of the week if you pull it up. Well, what we should all be in this market currently, right? I should be telling my client exactly what their home is worth to the nth right now. I should be sending them an automatic CMA of their home with comparables every 6 months, every year, whatever you decide that is. But that's a tool that's available. The automation part, I would like them. What I'm asking Moxie to do is let you put it on a calendar event and then have it email your client and email you prior, and then you clean it up and then your client after, because that's huge value. Every single person in the world wants to know what their house is worth, and you're the expert. And we have the tool that helps you put the right value on that house. And so I think that's a super easy one.
Well, that's powerful, considering, you know, I get this valuation once a month from Zillow, and all the first thing I think of every single time I say it is, well, it's wrong. You know, and by the way, it's not backed up with a human that kind of knows the market, knows the house. They've actually, you know, that person's actually been through my house, known the updates that I've done or whatever, right?
Yep. By the way, the second best thing to that, I think, Rich, you might be doing it, is HomeBot. You know, I would think that would be, you know, I think our CMA with your name and your information on it is the very best. The second best, if you're offering a valuation, is go through HomeBot.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's great. Well, we do have a couple questions out there. April, what do you have?
I have some questions, James.
Oh, okay, great. Melissa, what do you have there?
So how does working with the foundation differ from your day-to-day, as well as what communities does the foundation serve in your area compared to San Diego and the desert?
Okay, hold on. Do you mind, can we pause for just 1 second?
Yes.
I'm going to pull something up and I hope I can get this right. Actually, I know I can.
I thought you were going to pause to like use the restroom.
Nope.
Okay, you're pausing to get something. Okay, I got it.
I'm pausing, and will you, okay. Let me share my screen.
Okay, let's see here. Can you do that, Melissa? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's see here. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay, you guys, here is something that we put out in a local publication. And this is our offices in Seattle got together and put an insert into one of our business journals. And I don't know if you can see it, but these, everything you see here are organizations that we supported over the last year, okay, within the offices in Seattle. So we push, I'm going to unscreen and then I can happy to share this with you if you like.
Yeah, please.
I'm happy to share it. But so I work a ton with our foundation. We do a lot with our foundation here, and it's really important to all of our offices that we talk about our foundation all the time. But one of the things, and I'm hoping you all do it, is that for every person who does over and above, so something more than whatever your transactional foundation dollar is, the office will send a letter to your client that says so-and-so has made a donation in your name to the Windermere Foundation. And on it has stats for the Windermere Foundation, okay? Your client gets that letter and goes, oh my God, how cool is that? My agent just made a donation to the Windermere Foundation that supports blah, blah, blah. So if you don't do it, I suggest you do it. The foundation, I think, is one of the best things that we do as a company. Yeah. And we're constantly looking for ways that we can support our community, because that is an incredible value that we offer. You know, we all live and work obviously within local communities that need help. And And I just think we're in a specific position to offer that kind of help.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's powerful.
Sorry.
Yeah, Melissa, what else do you have there, or do you?
Yeah. So how or why is it so important for agents to have a mentor or coach?
It's a great question. So I'm going to answer it a couple different ways because I think there's a couple different answers. Number one, there is something special about Windermere. Okay. And a lot of, in my day, it was called the Windermere Way. I don't know if that's still a thing that people talk about, but I think that we as a company rise above the rest. And we do it because we're more professional. It feels like to me. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it feels like when a Windermere agent is on the other side of a transaction, I actually sigh. I feel good about it. I know it's going to close. I know that I'm going to be semi-frictionless most of the time. And so I think that's important to learn from other agents. I think that knowing that, fighting tooth and nail against another agent who's going to be in the market the rest of your life can be difficult. I think that understanding that this is a career where we all have to get along is important. And I think mentors and sponsors help do that. I think the nuts and bolts of going into your first buyer's appointment or listing appointment is scary and hard. Having somebody help you through that is, we used to, I wish we still did, matter of fact, when I went through ProStart, we had to write a contract and then we had to present that contract like we were a buyer's agent and videotape it in front of the class. And then we had to do it in the opposite for listing appointments. It was terrible. It was so scary and I was super embarrassed, but it was the most valuable thing we probably did because that's real life. And so I think that's what a mentor and sponsor can help you with, is taking you through those things and bringing you on appointments to listing and sales appointments. And I think that's just super valuable.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, know that thing cold. If you're going to do a listing presentation, you owe it to yourself to know it cold and to rehearse that for sure.
Yep.
Anything else that out there, Melissa?
There's no athlete who doesn't practice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one more. So you mentioned your internship with the University of Washington. When you were first entering the business, what is one thing you wish someone would have told you?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I'm going to be super honest, and this is terrible to even say, but I'm going to do it anyway. When I entered the business, I thought this was a job. And I was like, okay, is this 9 to 5? Am I done? The horn has sounded and I'm done working. And it took me until I was about 30 to figure out that this is not my job. This is my life. And that I actually have to spend time really deeply thinking about like where I want to go and what I want to do and how I want to strategize to be there. And it took me a while to figure that out. And once I figured it out, it almost became easier because then it was just on my mind all the time. And I could think about it in ways that I didn't know that I could actually think about things. And I didn't treat it like a job. It became fun. Like I really love what I do. And I like it because I just enjoy the challenge of real estate. It's a hard job. It's ever changing and it's fun to figure this stuff out.
Nice. Well, we did get a question, one more question from Ellen out in Palm Desert. She asked I know the answer to this because I'm not from Seattle, but I lived in Seattle for 25 years. So she asked, where did the name Windermere come from?
You want to answer it?
Well, I'm gonna make sure that I'm right by having you answer. But
I think I know.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, it's a neighborhood in the Sandpoint area, right?
It was where the first office was, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
In that neighborhood.
Seven person office, actually.
That's right. And if it was right next to that neighborhood, and if you follow, we have alerts, for social media and all sorts of stuff with the name Windermere on it. So if you start if you try and follow the word on Google, Windermere, what you're going to find out is Tiger Woods gets the name into a lot of trouble because that's where he lives in Florida.
Exactly. That's where he crashed, right? Yeah, exactly.
That's where he lives in Florida. So every time, somebody does something to Tiger, it's
oh, geez. That's funny. Well, there's a lot of neighborhoods you could have chosen, and that name works. I'm thinking there's a lot of names that we wouldn't have chosen, but it is a class act neighborhood in the Sandpoint area. I mean, it's a coveted area that people would love to live in. You know, many have views of the water, and obviously it's just kind of a really special area. We've got those areas in San Diego as well. I love that I'm saying we, by the way. I'm on my 100th day of saying we, but yeah, thanks for that. So, you know, and now we're going to get into kind of just the definitely non-rehearsed final questions. But before I do we have any other questions out there from the gallery, from the Zoom folks here or Facebook Live, anything else out there? And you're welcome just to unmute, right? Just talk to the man. And by the way, I wanted to throw this out here. I put a note down here. Carl McNew, do you see Carl there? He's got the headphones on. Carl used to be the owner of our office out there in Boulder, Colorado, and he now is the manager in Palm Desert with us. And he, so, you know, we've got kind of like that expertise out there in Palm Desert. And so, yeah, you can't take the Windermere out of Windermere agents.
It was Denver, by the way. But...
Oh, well, there you go, Denver.
Yeah.
Good to see you,
Colorado, right?
Good to see you, Obi.
Yeah.
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 We have history.
Yeah, we have history. Anything else, anyone out there? Okay, Obi, here's the first question. Who's your hero?
Who's my hero? This is gonna sound really cheesy. You know, I think I learned a lot of really good life lessons from my mom. She gave me a bunch of, my parents divorced and I lived with her for quite a while, and she'd give you just all those one-liners that was like, oh, that's how you grow up. And so she's just a super neat lady. I like her a lot.
You still hear those pieces of advice in your head?
Voice all the time. Actually, part of it is good and part of it is bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
She just had her 79th birthday this last weekend.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, okay. So how about, like, what would you tell your younger self? I mean, we've already alluded to some of this, but if you were to be able to go back to your 21-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Drink more water, not beer.
I think all of us can learn from that. Some of us have learned so much we just don't drink anymore.
I'm just about to hike up Rainier today, so I'm thinking, yeah, good choice.
Well, but isn't beer water? Well, it just depends. Like,
Coors Light, Bud Light. I kind of figure that's mostly water.
For all of you that drink more beer than water, just remember that the president of Windermere Real Estate, his most important piece of advice is to drink more water. But I actually think there's a good word in there. Was that from your mom as well?
No, that was from me.
Okay. All right. Well, then now let's reverse it.
Yeah.
Let's reverse the question. And let's say you're 51 and you're telling your 81-year-old self something. What would you tell him?
You know, it became actually true for me during the pandemic, which was, you know, when you're sitting alone, my wife lives in Boise and I live in Seattle. And so we had, you know, we've had for a decade, we've had a long distance relationship, and my kids are off in college and she's got 2 young kids. And what I found through the pandemic was that a lot of people had a lot of hard time being at home, being on a screen, being by themselves. And what I found was that in your busy everyday life, you sometimes forget to pick up the phone and call a friend. And I found that it was incredibly important to pick up the phone and call friends, because I had friends who were super depressed, and that connection to people really became incredibly important. You know, I'm one of 3 right now in the office, but yesterday the office was pretty full, and I was like, my smile was ear to ear. I was like, oh, there's people.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I think all of us in this business are people. And even though we're on a screen, you know, we got to remember to have our relationships and make an effort. And I would say, you know, if I was 81, I'd say make sure and have those really deep, fun relationships, because it's part of being a person. It's part of having fun.
Oh yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, so there's that kind of stop and be in relationship mantra there. Yeah, for sure.
There's actually one other that I think is super important, especially for this group. That something that I've figured out is when you're on Zoom, you know, you go from one Zoom to the next Zoom, and there's like literally a minute between sometimes, most of the time, most of the days. And what I found is I needed to to say, time out. I got to go outside and go for a walk. And that was my thing that I had to do. And so, whether it was a phone call while I was walking outside, but, fresh air, away from a screen, away from the work. I think everybody has to take time for themselves. Yeah. And, the goal of this job is to work as hard as you possibly can all the time. The goal is to have fun. Yeah. And have a life as well. So take a pause and go outside and have a walk.
Oh, that's powerful. Well, we're going to let you go and take a hike, actually. And Obi, we're going to lean on you again. And of course, we'll put you up down in Southern California whenever you come. And I know you come down there. So run on by. We'll take you to our nicest office and treat you to lunch, of course, or maybe you could treat us to lunch.
I'd love to come down.
And Rich, is anything else for the good of the order? I see you're unmuted.
No, thanks, Obi, for joining us. It's been great to have you on. And I think it's really great for our agents to get the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. Yeah. Even though we are a family, and I've always considered Windermere to be my work and my work family. There's a lot of distance between us. And so, I think it's nothing but beneficial for people to hear the stories and to hear the history and all of that. Mm-hmm. That's very, very rich, and was really the reason why I chose to affiliate with Windermere myself almost 18 years ago now. And so a couple other quick comments. As you had referred to Mike Del Prete, or Pret, or I forget how to pronounce his name, but great article on Inman today, talking about these different models that are offering agents stock, and the fact that Compass's stock is down 35% since the IPO and 22% over the last, since 2019. And every one of the other ones is as well. Mm-hmm. And I think what I would have to say is this, is that I feel like Windermere is my true north. We are a full service real estate company that you can be proud of. Mm. We have staff, we have technology, we have support, we have the entire package. And even though COVID has disconnected us and caused a lot of us to be lonely and to be at home and to do those, to have those types of feelings, that as we come out of COVID, we're going to come back to that center point. And I think for our agents, you're in a really good position because it's all here. It never left. And so I'm very appreciative of your time today, and I'm appreciative of the company. And take the time, you guys, to learn the story because it's a good one. So thank you, Obi.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. I love these talks, so I'm happy to seriously anytime you want. I love talking about stuff.
All right. All right. Well,
thanks for having me. Thanks for being part of Windermere, everybody.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You guys, we aren't anything.
Well, on behalf of Windermere Homes and Estates, Rich Johnson, all 500 of our agents and the 2,600 different people that we help buy or sell every single year, we just want to thank you, Obi, for joining us. And we will definitely take you up on coming on the show again, meeting up with our agents. And if anyone has any questions for Obi, you can shoot him an email. I mean, he's totally up for 500 more emails today. But Obi, what's your email address?
OBJ@Windermere.
And that's OBJ. But he's Obi-Wan. He's Obi-Wan on Zoom. Huh. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone. And thanks so much, Obi, and have a wonderful hike today.
Thanks, you guys. See ya.